The bankruptcy paper sat in front of Victor Hargrove like a verdict he already knew was coming. He stared at them the way a man might stare at the final page of a long, tragic novel, one whose ending he'd read 100 times but could never quite accept. His hands trembled, not with fear. Fear had burned out months ago, but with something older, deeper, a kind of physical rebellion, the body's last instinct to resist self-destruction. The marble lobby around him was silent and cavernous, its echoes too loud, too sharp for a morning that should have been ordinary. The building still carried his initials carved into brass plaques on the wall. Hargrove Tower, his tower, or at least it had been. Today, it felt more like a tomb with his name engraved on the front. 7:53 a.m. 7 minutes until his lawyer arrived. 7 minutes until he signed away 30 years of his life. 7 minutes until Victor Hargrove officially ceased to be the man he'd spent decades building. He picked up the gold Mont Blanc pen lying beside the documents. His father had given it to him when he earned his first million, telling him, "What you sign with this will define you." He wondered what his father would say now if he saw what his son was signing it for. The pen felt heavier today, as if it understood the weight of what he was about to do. Victor set it down again. His fingers were shaking too much to grip it anyway. The lobby was empty except for a cleaning cart tucked near the elevator and a lone waitress from the ground floor cafe wiping down tables in the corner. She kept glancing at him. He didn't need to look up to feel it. The soft, cautious way someone looks at a tragedy from a distance. Pity. There was again. He'd had enough pity to drown in lately. His board had pitied him before resigning. His wife had pitied him before walking out. Even his daughter had pitied him before she stopped calling altogether. A voice broke the heavy silence. "Mr. Hargrove?" Soft, hesitant. Victor didn't turn around. "I'm busy," he said, though he hadn't done anything but sit frozen for the last half hour. Footsteps moved closer, careful, almost wary, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "I'm sorry," the voice said gently, "but I think you're making a mistake." That made him turn. The waitress in the cafe stood behind him, a coffee pot in one hand, her apron stained with splashes from a morning rush. She looked younger up close, late 20s maybe, with brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her name tag read the line. Victor's eyebrows knit. "Excuse me." She didn't flinch at his tone. Instead, she set the coffee pot down on the table and nodded toward the papers. "I saw those earlier when I was cleaning this area." She lifted her hands, slightly. "I wasn't snooping. They just happened to be open. And the numbers didn't look right." A humorless laugh scraped at Victor's throat. "You're a waitress." "I am," she said without offense. "But I used to work in accounting." She didn't elaborate, but something shadowed her expression. Heavy, painful, quickly masked. Victor almost told her to walk away. To stop pretending numbers on a stranger's documents mattered. But there was something in her voice, quiet certainty, not pity, that made him pause. "Why do you care?" he asked. DeLine held his gaze. And for the first time in months, Victor felt seen, not as a failure or a headline or a collapsing empire, but as a man who was about to do something irreversible. Because, she said softly, "I know what it feels like to give up on something when maybe you don't have to. And when you picked up that pen, I could tell you didn't want to sign." She was right. God, she was right. Without thinking about why, Victor slid the documents toward her. "You have 5 minutes," he said. "My lawyer will be here at 8. DeLine sat across from him and pulled the papers closer. Her posture changed instantly, focused, sharp, the quiet intensity of someone who once belonged in a world far more calculated than a cafe. Her eyes scanned lines of legal language faster than Victor had ever seen. She flipped pages, reread sections, traced numbers with her finger. This wasn't pity. This was analysis. After several tense moments, she stopped at a section near the middle of the 3rd page. Her brow furrowed. "This debt consolidation calculation," she murmured. "Your Riverside Holdings assets are counted twice. Once under commercial properties, and again under investment portfolios. That's $4.2 million in duplicate liabilities," Victor finished, his mind kicking into gear. His heart, which had been beating slow and heavy all morning, suddenly thudded harder. The line flipped to another page. In this projection, they used last year's numbers. But your software division secured a contract with a hospital network recently, right? I remember seeing that headline. Victor nodded slowly. 6 weeks ago. My CFO left before updating the bankruptcy assessment. She turned another page, still scanning. If these numbers are wrong, then your entire debt-to-asset ratio changes. You may not even qualify for Chapter 11. You might just need restructuring, Victor whispered. Not destruction, not death, not the end, just a different path. He stared at her, something raw cracking open inside him. Who are you? DeLine gave a small, sad smile. Someone who made a mistake with numbers once and lost everything because of it. I don't want to watch someone else do the same if they don't have to. Before Victor could speak, the lobby doors flew open. Richard Chin, his lawyer, strode in with a briefcase and a grim set jaw. Behind him was someone Victor never expected to see this morning. Patricia, his ex-wife, dressed in black, like she was attending a funeral. Which, in a way, she was. Victor, Richard said, it's time. Patricia didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her cold stare sliced through him like a blade. Victor looked back at DeLine. She was gathering the papers, her fingers moving quickly with purpose. Wait, Victor said, standing so fast his chair scraped the marble. His voice wasn't weak this time. It wasn't defeated. It was alive. Richard, these documents need to be reviewed again. They're errors. Richard frowned. Victor, we've been over this. Then we'll go over it again. Patricia scoffed. You're stalling. This is pathetic. But Victor wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the waitress who had just handed him back the one thing he thought was dead. Hope. Richard approached the table. Miss, what's your name? DeLine. Did you find these errors? A beat of hesitation, and then she nodded. Richard took the pages. Scanning the section she pointed out, his expression shifted just slightly, but enough. Where did you work before this? He asked. Carter and Associates. She said quietly. Junior accountant. 3 years. Before I made a mistake that cost a client. I was let go. Richard's jaw tightened. She's right, he said to Victor. These numbers need rechecking. If her findings are accurate, this filing could be premature. Could be? Patricia snapped. This is absurd. You're taking advice from a waitress. I'm taking advice from the only person who bothered to actually read the numbers, Victor said sharply. Richard, start an audit. Today. Richard nodded. I'll make the calls. Patricia turned toward the door. You're delusional. But Victor barely heard her. He was staring at DeLine, a stranger who had just saved his life. She hesitated. Not because she didn't want to share the table. She hated how this place made kindness feel like an inconvenience, but because surprise held her for a moment. No one ever asked politely here. People hovered like vultures. They swooped. They claimed chairs as if they paid property tax on them. This man, he asked. Yeah, she said, sliding her bag off on the empty seats. Sure, go ahead. The man smiled, small, grateful, the kind you only see on someone who hasn't had much to smile about lately. He lowered himself carefully as if trying not to disturb the air around him. His jacket, she noticed, wasn't just worn, it had stories. The frayed cuffs, the fading color, the loose thread on the shoulder, they weren't neglect. They were survival. He placed his lukewarm takeout coffee on the table and slowly powered on a battered old tablet. The screen cracked at the corner. Thank you, he murmured. Everyone else pretended I was invisible. She snorted softly. That's pretty normal here. People act like chairs are private property. He chuckled, and for a moment his eyes lit up. Warm brown eyes. Tired but kind. The kind of tired you don't get from a long night. You get it from a long life. She went back to her laptop. Her upcoming job interview. The one she desperately needed to go well. She was rehearsing sentences in her head when she heard him sigh quietly. Not dramatic. Not attention-seeking. More like a balloon, letting out air after being stretched too long. Everything okay? she asked before she could stop herself. He blinked. Surprised, she noticed. Yeah, just trying to upload a document for a job application. But the Wi-Fi keeps kicking me off. And my tablet, well, he tapped it. The screen flickered like a dying star. It's on its last prayer. She angled her laptop toward herself, but kept her voice open. What kind of job? Warehouse position. Midnight shift. He rubbed his thumb over the chip tablet edge. I just need something steady. Do you live around here? She asked. He hesitated, not suspiciously, but carefully. Just moved back a few months ago. Trying to get things in order again. She didn't ask what happened before. She could hear it in the way he said again. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. More like a pause in a conversation they hadn't realized they were having. Then his tablet froze. He sighed, restarted it, froze again. She watched him swallow frustration, the way people do when life has taught them to take disappointment quietly. Can I? She gestured toward her laptop. If you email me the document, I can upload it for you. His head jerked up. Oh, no. I couldn't ask you to. You didn't ask, she cut in gently. I offered. He stared at her as if he hadn't heard a genuine offer in a long time. Then, slowly, he nodded. Only if you're sure. She gave him her email. His fingers shook slightly as he typed it on his flickering screen. A minute later, the notification pinged on her laptop. She opened the file. A resume. Simple. Short. Humble. Too humble. You undersold yourself, she murmured before thinking. His eyebrows lifted. What do you mean? You mentioned you worked in logistics for 8 years, but you didn't include any of the specifics. No software experience. No certifications. Nothing about the leadership tasks. He looked startled, almost embarrassed. No one ever cared about that stuff before. They will, she said firmly, because it matters. He stared at her again with that strange expression, cautious, startled gratitude, the kind that suggested people in his life had repeatedly taught him not to expect help. She revised 2 bullet points, rephrased a sentence, polished a line. She didn't change anything major, never took credit, but she highlighted his strengths with the same care she used on her own resume. He watched quietly, hands folded, as if afraid touching anything might break the moment. Finally, she uploaded the revised document to the website for him. Done. He exhaled, deep, shaky, relieved. Thank you, he whispered. Really, thank you. She shrugged, pretending it was nothing. We're both job hunting. Might as well survive together. He smiled again, this time a real one. Bigger, warmer. Name's Daniel, by the way. She blinked. I'm Harper. Harper. He repeated like he wanted to remember it. If there's ever anything I can do to return the favor. Get the job, she said. That's enough. He laughed a little. I'll try. But something in his voice told her he'd try harder now. Minutes passed. She returned to her interview notes. He worked on another form. A quiet companionship settled. Unexpected, gentle, and oddly grounding. When his 10 minutes were up, he gathered his tablet and his coffee. Good luck on your interview, he said, standing. I hope they see how capable you are. She blinked. Nobody had said something like that to her in a long time, not without wanting something in return. Good luck to you, too, she replied softly. He nodded once, then turned, and she watched the room swallow him again. People barely glanced at him. The world had a way of overlooking men like him, but she didn't, and something told her she wasn't supposed to. She returned to her laptop, but it was harder to focus. Her mind kept drifting to the worn jacket, the trembling fingers, the quiet dignity. A thought tugged at her. Would she ever see him again? Probably not. But fate had other plans. Because 3 days later, when she walked into her job interview at the downtown distribution center, she froze. Behind the front desk, adjusting a stack of freshly printed application packets, stood a man in a clean, new gray uniform shirt. Same warm brown eyes. Same shy smile. Daniel. He looked up, and the recognition hit both of them like a soft collision. You're... she began. He grinned, lifting the badge clipped to his shirt. New hire. And you must be Harper. Her breath caught. He leaned slightly closer and whispered with a spark in his eyes, I told you I'd try. Before she could respond, the hiring manager called her name. And as she walked through the hallway toward what could be the start of her new life, she realized something. Kindness has a strange way of circling back. Sometimes in the form of a job. Sometimes in the form of a stranger. Sometimes in the form of a beginning. This time, maybe all three.